Transition fundamentals is now in your system an important part when you develop what you're trying to accomplish of how to execute those techniques. And drills, this is where you're going to see a lot of drills show up to understand what I'm trying to get accomplished with those fundamentals. I have the how to get it done, but what do I need to get done, right? So this is the what versus the how, okay? This is where our secondary eyes and keys have to go. We've already looked at our initial key. We've looked at our initial read. Where do I look next, right? My technique tells me, am I going to go spill? Am I going to box? Am I going to play a quarterback player? Am I going to be a dive player, right? What about gap control on pulls? They're doing back block pull. They're running counter bash. How do my eyes transition to the secondary key that you've established within that technique? We have our way. I have my way of teaching and doing it at the Air Force Academy. I'm going to give you a few little pieces of that without giving too much away, but it's on you as your it's on you as a D-line coach to tell that DC and work with that DC what you think your guys can get accomplished, and then together make a plan to how those eyes transition on those techniques, okay? This is also where you talk about transition fundamentals. Screen. How do we transition into a screen retrace? How do we transitional pass rush, right? 2/3 or at least half of every pass rush rep that your D linemen are going to have, all right, is going to be some sort of first and second down transitional pass rush. All right, you got 3 downs, that an offense is trying to do. Only one of them is third down. All right, if they're going to throw, it's more than likely going to be in some sort of play action pass on those first 2 downs. Okay, so we got to do a great job of transitioning in pass rush. Okay, so we'll go through kind of how we do that with games or fundamentals and one-on-ones on that concept. All right, and then how do I transition to matching the hand? That's super important. Right, and we'll get into that with pass rush, but matching the hand is just as important as a sack. If I can knock a ball down, all right, that's just as good, man. They're off the field on a second or third down, right? Or they're off the field on a third down. Second down, if you knock a bad 2nd and 10, all right, they're doing a pass play and you bat the ball down, you just put them in 3rd and 10, all right? That's elite right there, okay? We're in a great spot to get off the field, okay? So how do we do that? First, we're going to start with edge, okay? So we're going to start with your defensive ends, outside backer type guys, okay? All right, this is just, I'm not going to really explain too much of this drill. We're just working one of our techniques here. I want you to watch his eyes. Okay, I love this clip, and I show this to my freshmen. Notice this edge player's eyes going from his primary to his secondary read. Snaps inside to the backfield. Snaps inside. Actually, it's 3 reads. He's going from the guy on the right to the guy on the left to the eyes in the backfield. But this is how you got to start. Again, start on air with these types of drills so that you can build the foundation of the body movement. And now on the transition phase, it's building the eyes, right? So can I build the eyes snapping inside, right? Well, how do we build off of it? Okay, well, this is how we, with our edge guys, works our 7s, our 6s, and our 5s versus our 3-man series. Very similar type drill, but now we're adding the spill or the box component. My eyes are transitioning to my secondary key. I had a tight end in the core, so I'm alerted to the slice. Whether I'm boxing or spilling it is on you and your technique, but watch the eyes transition from my key to the backfield here and now executing the technique, okay? So again, this transitional fundamentals block is where your technique work is really going to show up in drills, okay? So 2-6 does a good job right there. All right, now we take the tight end out of it. No 3-man surface, no slicer. Now just the read zone component, right? Whether you're tackling the dive or you're tackling the end, this is one of our shuffle squeeze drills where we're making our defensive ends, all right, our edge players double duty, okay? So they're quarterback and dive players. All right, because we got the athletic guys to do it. This is a great drill. Watch his eyes. Snap in here, into the backfield, transitions out. Great job, okay? So a really easy drill, okay? This is now tackling the dive. Eyes snap in. Quarterback doesn't have the ball. His eyes went from his primary key of the tip of the pad of the offensive tackle to the quarterback mesh point. Now he sees brown belly. The ball is not in my hands, so now his eyes transition in to go tackle, fall in on the dive, okay? Transition drills. Okay, very easy. They have to be technique specific. Something that is not technique specific, more to the fundamental side, just the spill component. The transitional fundamentals block is where we put in our spill drills. Okay, so This drill right here to the left, you see me with this heavy sled right here. This is not designed, if you're going to use a sled, love it. For spill drills, love it. Just teach them not to pry vertical. You're going to see 9-5 here. All right, you're going to see me try to show him what to do. Go into this attacking because my eyes transition from the tip of the pad down the line to my secondary read, which is spilling the blocker, either a trap, a guard pulling, all right, a tackle pulling on a counter bash, a slicer from the backside, right? Run through the contact, okay? So, again, here's me demonstrating. Run through the contact. Do not let them pry up if you're going to use a sled. You almost get guys hurt with this. I do get scared, so I stand right here, okay? But the very first rep, you're going to see 9-5. Try to rip vertical. Guy, what are you doing? All right, don't do this, all right? So the second rep is much better by a defensive end. Again, I got to show them again, okay? Good. That's the aggressiveness on a spill drill. So a good fundamental drill to work the spill on the transitional piece with your eyes, okay? All right, moving on. Coach, we like to do force box techniques, or we like to double, splatter techniques, cheek techniques. There's names for all of them, okay? This is an example of that splatter or cheek technique, okay? The defensive end transition his eyes, all right? Gets a feel for the drill. We just add us a finished component in here with a tackle on the yoga ball, okay? Really good. If you got a yoga ball, use it for some of your tackle drills, okay? But here's the cheek technique. All right, now 2 gaps, same thing. My eyes transition from primary to secondary. So that's where these drills show up, all right? We have our drills. You got to come up with some drills that fit your techniques and what your guys are trying to accomplish, especially with your edge players right here, okay? All right, another example, okay, of transitional eyes. A lot of teams like to run counter bash or dart, where they're pulling a tackle, pulling guard and tackle with that counter bash concept, or read counter OT concepts. Well, how do you transition your edge guys' eyes and their footwork to be able to execute the defense? We can do it a bunch of different ways. Here's an example that showed up on tape of us getting tackle pull and charging. You see me right here into the top of the screen with a quarterback, okay? Starting defensive end and nose guard right here. All right, we're just doing transition, okay? Nose guard feels that 2-eye work over the top, feels that tackle as a 3 technique work over the top. So he's working his transitional component of working back and steering back in the A gap on that tackle pull. Same time, simultaneously, this defensive end right here to the top gets tackle pull. He gets into the hip pocket, and his eyes transition to the backfield. Because his tackle pulled, we taught in this particular week, hey, we're going to charge the quarterback on this one. We can stay at the line of scrimmage. You can teach, go get in his hip pocket and tackle the dive. That's up to you and what you want to do with your techniques. But it's got to show up in a game. You've got to be able to teach it from week to week to show up in a game with your transitional fundamentals, okay? So does it show up in a game? You bet. Okay, so here we are. That same drill that we worked, we get into the game, same 2 people. The nose guard and the defensive end right here, okay? I'm going to go to the back shot right here just so we can get a clear copy of this defensive end here to the right. Does a great job on the drill that we just worked, getting into that tackle's hip pocket, transitioning his eyes from his primary key to his secondary key. All right? If it works in the practice, hopefully it shows up on a game. Does a great job, gets us a free TFL. We're in the backfield, okay? All right, if you're going to play double duty ends, we call them plug techniques, all right? Shuffle, squeeze, whatever you want to call it. Double duty ends drills, okay? Got to build on this. If you're going to have a defensive end, all right, play double duty. We showed you the initial phase where just the eyes on air. We showed you the secondary phase where we put a body and then the quarterback tight end read. This would be the final phase, the boss phase right here, right? We're adding all the components. We got a slicer from the backside. So now this edge guy's got to read the slice. Is the slice going wide and retreating so it's naked paths? So now he's got to transition. Is the slice coming tight, coming to kick me out? Is the slice not even coming? All right, is the slice staying front side and now it's just a Roz and they're using that outside zone C-gap blocker with that tight end of the front side. He doesn't slice across, okay? And I should have awareness of that with my football IQ. Football IQ always showing up through all of this. Is this tight end flat and wide? Probably more anticipating that, right? So here we go. We get into this phase right here in this plug drill. Stops right at the outside share of the quarterback. Brown belly, eyes transition, shuffle, shuffle in, shuffle, shuffle out. Does a great job playing double duty, okay? Well, what if we add a slice component? Okay? So this is all the static pictures, okay? Now we add the slice component, okay? Now we're in here. He's in here tight. We better spill, okay? Coach, he can't double duty. Yep, and that's the coaching point. My eyes went from primary to secondary. If they bring a blocker back into this C-gap, whatever coverage we're in, they just brought an additional run fitter in here. So it's not my job to fit outside this guy when I'm taught in my technique in this drill spill, okay? So I'm not worried about double duty, okay? So he does a good job right in there.